one planet, one drug, and whoever controls it controls the entire universe. Before you watch Dune, Part 3, you need to remember exactly how this story started, because everything coming in Part 3, every betrayal, every war, every vision, was set up in the very first movie. So in the next 18 minutes, I'm taking you through Dune, Part 1, scene by scene, no filler. By the end, you'll remember everything that matters. Let's go. The year is 10191. Humanity has spread across the stars, ruled by an emperor and a handful of powerful noble families called the Great Houses. And the most valuable thing in this entire universe isn't gold, it isn't technology. It's a drug called spice. Spice only exists on one planet, a brutal desert world called Arrakis, also known as Dune. Spice extends human life, it expands the mind, and most importantly, it's the only thing that makes space travel possible. Without spice, ships can't navigate between the stars. Without spice, the Empire collapses overnight. Remember that, because it's the reason everyone in this story is willing to kill. The movie opens through the eyes of a young desert woman named Chani. Her people are the Fremen, the natives of Arrakis. For 80 years, their planet has been occupied by House Harkonnen, cruel, pale, brutal people who rip the spice out of the sand and slaughter any Fremen who get in their way. The Harkonnens have become disgustingly rich doing it. But then one day, out of nowhere, the Emperor orders the Harkonnens to leave Arrakis. And Chani asks the question that drives the entire film, who will our next oppressors be? Cut to a completely different world, Caladan. Green, wet, covered in oceans. This is the home of House Atreides, and this is where we meet our main character, Paul Atreides. He's the son of Duke Leto Atreides, the leader of the house, and Lady Jessica. Paul is young, he's smart, and he has a problem. He keeps dreaming about a girl on Arrakis. A girl with blue eyes he's never met. That girl is Chani, and these aren't just dreams. Keep that in mind. Now, Paul's mother, Jessica, isn't a normal noblewoman. She belongs to the Bene Gesserit, an ancient sisterhood of women with abilities that look almost supernatural. They read people, they control their own bodies completely, and they have a weapon called the voice, a way of speaking that forces people to obey. At breakfast, Jessica makes Paul practice it. He commands her to hand him a glass of water, and her hand moves against her will. She's been secretly training her son in Bene Gesserit ways, which, as we'll learn, is strictly forbidden. Then comes the moment that changes everything. A messenger from the Emperor arrives on Caladan in a massive ceremony and delivers the order. House Atreides will take over Arrakis. The Harkonnens are out. The Atreides are in. On paper, this is the greatest gift imaginable, the richest planet in the universe, handed to them for free. But Duke Leto isn't stupid. He knows there's no such thing as a free gift. Here's the real situation. The Emperor is afraid of Duke Leto. The other great houses respect Leto. They listen to him. He's becoming too popular, too powerful. So the Emperor set a trap. Give the Atreides Arrakis. Pull them away from home, away from their strength, and then let the Harkonnens come back and destroy them, with the Emperor secretly helping. Leto suspects a trap. He walks into it anyway, because he has a plan of his own win over the Fremen. The desert natives are deadly fighters, and there may be far more of them than anyone believes. Leto calls it desert power. He sends his best swordsman, Duncan Idaho, Paul's friend and mentor, to Arrakis early to make contact with them. Before they leave Caladan, two important scenes. First, Paul trains with Gurney Halleck, the family's war master. This fight teaches us how combat works in this universe. Everyone wears energy shields that stop bullets and fast strikes. Only a slow blade gets through a shield. That's why everyone fights with knives and swords. Paul doesn't feel like fighting that day, and Gurney attacks him anyway, pins a blade to his neck, and tells him the truth: the enemy won't care about your mood. Paul then surprises him, and pins a blade at Gurney's body too. The kid is better than he looks. Second scene, and this one is crucial, an old woman arrives at night. The Reverend Mother Mohiam, the most powerful figure in the Bene Gesserit and the Emperor's own truthsayer. She orders Paul into a room alone and gives him a test. He must put his hand inside a box while she holds a poisoned needle to his neck. Move the hand, he dies instantly. And inside the box, pain. Unbearable, burning pain. The test is simple. An animal caught in a trap will chew off its own leg to escape. A human will endure the pain, stay in the trap, and outsmart the hunter. Paul screams inside, but keeps his hand in the box. He passes. And he endures more pain than any candidate before him. Even Mohiam is shaken. Why does this test exist? Because the Bene Gesserit have spent thousands of years running a secret breeding program. They've been arranging marriages and bloodlines across generations for one goal: to produce a super being called the Kwisatz Haderach, a mind powerful enough to see across space and time. The plan was for Jessica to have a daughter, who would then have the chosen one. But Jessica disobeyed. Out of love for Leto, she had a son, Paul, which means the chosen one might have arrived a generation early, outside the sisterhood's control. That terrifies them. Hold on to this, because it's the engine of the entire trilogy. Now we cut to a black, oily nightmare of a planet, Giedi Prime, home of the Harkonnens. Here we meet the villain, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, enormous, floating on anti-gravity suspensors, soaking in black tar. With him, his brutal nephew Rabban, known as the Beast. The Baron confirms the plan. The Emperor has given him permission to wipe out House Atreides, and he's even lending the Baron his own personal army, the Sardaukar. And you need to understand what the Sardaukar are, the most feared soldiers in the universe, raised on a prison planet, religious fanatics who bless their blades with the blood of sacrificed men. One Sardaukar is worth 10 ordinary soldiers. The trap is set. Meanwhile, one more thing happens in the shadows. Reverend Mother Mohiam visits the Baron and makes him promise one thing. When he destroys the Atreides, Paul and Jessica must be spared. The Baron gives his word. Watch how he keeps it. The Atreides arrive on Arrakis. Huge crowds gather to watch them land, and something strange happens. Some of the Fremen in the crowd start chanting a phrase, Lizan al-Gaib. It means the voice from the outer world, a messiah. Here's the twist. Centuries ago, the Bene Gesserit deliberately planted prophecies among the Fremen. Stories of a savior, a mother and son who would come from off-world and lead them to paradise. It was insurance, a tool for future manipulation. But the Fremen believe it. And now Paul and Jessica have walked straight into their own legend. Jessica understands exactly what's happening. Paul doesn't yet. This idea, a manufactured prophecy that becomes terrifyingly real, is the heart of Dune. Do not forget it. Almost immediately, someone tries to kill Paul. A hunter-seeker, a tiny floating needle drone, controlled by a hidden Harkonnen agent, slips into his room. It hunts by movement. Paul stays perfectly still, then snatches it out of the air and destroys it. Welcome to Arrakis. Duke Leto gets to work. Duncan Idaho returns from the deep desert with news. He's lived with the Fremen, and Leto's instincts were right. They're extraordinary. And there are far more of them than anyone imagined. Millions. Their leader, Stilgar, comes to meet the Duke and even spits on the floor in front of everyone. The room panics, but Duncan explains, on a world where water is everything, giving your body's moisture is a sign of deep respect. Leto responds respectfully. A first bridge to the Fremen is built. Then comes one of the best sequences in the film. Leto, Paul, and Gurney fly out with Dr. Liet Kynes, the Emperor's ecologist on Arrakis, and secretly someone with deep ties to the Fremen, to watch spice mining in action. A massive harvester machine is out on the sands sucking up spice. But on Arrakis, mining is a race against death, because vibration on the sand summons them sandworms. Colossal creatures, hundreds of meters long, that swallow machines whole. The Fremen call them Shai Hulud and worship them as gods. Sure enough, Wormzine. A worm is coming, and the carryall ship that's supposed to lift the harvester to safety never shows up. The harvester crew is stranded. And here's the moment that tells you who Duke Leto really is. He doesn't hesitate for a second. Forget the spice. He throws his own ships into rescuing the crew. As the men scramble aboard, Paul is hit by a blast of raw spice in the open air, and time cracks open. He hears voices. He sees Chani, and behind them all, the worm rises, a mountain of a creature, and swallows the entire harvester in one bite. Everyone barely escapes. Kynes watches Leto risk everything for his men, and you can see it on her face. She's never seen a ruler like this. And Paul's visions are getting stronger. That night, he sees something that horrifies him, a holy war, spreading across the universe in his name. Billions dead. An army of fanatics slaughtering in the name of Paul Atreides. He tells no one. But this vision is the shadow hanging over everything, all the way into part 3. And now, the fall. Because the trap finally springs, and it comes from the person no one suspected. Dr. Wellington Yueh, the family doctor. A man so trusted, so deeply conditioned against betrayal, that treachery was considered impossible for him. But the Harkonnens found his weakness. They have his wife. To free her, Yueh betrays everyone. At night, he shuts down Arakin's shields, drugs Duke Leto, and lets hell in. Harkonnen ships descend on the city, thousands of troops, and with them disguised Sardaukar. The Atreides army, one of the finest in the universe, is butchered in a single night. The city burns. But even Yueh has one last card to play. He plants a fake tooth in the paralyzed Duke's mouth, a tooth filled with poison gas. Bite down, and everyone nearby dies. He asks only one thing: kill the Baron. Do it for my wife. Yueh delivers the Duke to the Harkonnens and asks the Baron for his payment, his wife's freedom. And the Baron smiles and keeps his promise in the cruelest way possible. Your wife is free because she's already dead, and you can join her. They kill Yueh on the spot. Then, the confrontation. Duke Leto, paralyzed, stripped, humiliated, sits across from the gloating Baron. And with his final breath, Leto bites down on the tooth. Green poison gas floods the room. It kills the Baron's twisted advisor, Piter, and everyone else at that table. But the Baron, at the last second, activates his suspensors and floats up out of the gas. Duke Leto dies. The Baron survives. Barely, burned and furious, but he survives. What about Paul and Jessica? Remember the Baron's promise to spare them? Here's his trick. His men fly them deep into the desert and plan to dump them there. No blood on his hands. The desert does the killing. Except the soldiers make one fatal mistake. They ungag Jessica. She unleashes the voice, turns the soldiers against each other, and she and Paul fight their way free. Two people, alone, in the deadliest desert in the universe. That night, hiding in a survival tent, something breaks open inside Paul. The massive spice exposure has cracked his mind wide open, and futures come flooding in. Countless paths, wars, faces. He turns on his mother in fury. You did this to me. Your breeding program. Your sisterhood. He sees what he might become, and it terrifies him. And through her tears, Jessica confirms the truth we already know. Paul may be the Kwisatz Haderach, the one the Bene Gesserit have spent 90 generations trying to create. In this scene, watch Paul carefully. When he calms down, his voice changes. He speaks with a cold clarity that frightens even Jessica. The boy is dying. Something else is being born. They're not dead yet, and neither is Duncan Idaho. He survived the massacre, finds them in the desert, and brings them to an old research station along with Dr. Kynes. Kynes now knows the full truth. The Emperor himself is behind the attack. Sardaukar fighting alongside Harkonnens. That's imperial treason against a great house, and if the other houses knew, it would mean civil war. But before anyone can act, the Sardaukar find them. What follows is Duncan Idaho's last stand. To buy Paul time to escape, Duncan holds a corridor alone against elite Sardaukar. He kills soldier after soldier and dies on their blades. Paul watches through the glass, screaming. His teacher, his best friend, gone. Duncan sacrifices a wound Paul carries forever. Paul and Jessica take a small aircraft and fly straight into a monster sandstorm to escape, because Paul has seen a path through it in his visions. The pursuing pilots refuse to follow. The Sardaukar assume they're dead. Kynes refuses to escape with them. Wounded by the Sardaukar, she crawls into the open desert, plants a thumper, a rhythmic device that summons sandworms, and speaks her final words. I serve only one master. His name is Shai-Hulud. The sand erupts and swallows her, and the Sardaukar hunting her. Back in the city, the Baron takes control of Arrakis again and hands it to his nephew, Beast Rabban, with one order: squeeze. Squeeze the planet for every coin, make spice flow no matter how many die, and keep in the back of your mind, the Baron has another nephew, younger, smarter, and crueler. You'll meet Feyd-Rautha in Part 2. Paul and Jessica crash land in the deep desert. They're alive, but now comes the desert itself. To cross open sand without calling a worm, you can't walk normally, you have to sandwalk, moving with a broken rhythm, like the shifting of the dunes. They almost make it. A worm rises and closes in on them, when suddenly a thumper starts beating in the distance. Someone deliberately called the worm away. They've been found by the Fremen. Stilgar's warband surrounds them, and there she is, the girl from Paul's dreams, Chani, standing in front of him, real, exactly as he's seen her 1,000 times. The Fremen debate what to do. Stilgar sees value in Paul. The boy is young and can learn the ways of the desert. But Jessica, to them, a soft off-world woman, a burden to be killed for her water. Big mistake. Jessica moves like lightning, and in seconds she has a blade at Stilgar's throat. She takes down the toughest fighter of the band before anyone can blink. Now they've earned attention. But one Fremen won't accept them, a fighter named Jameis. He feels humiliated, and he invokes the ancient right, a duel to the death. And here's the thing, Paul has never killed anyone, ever. Chani quietly gives him her own blade, a Christ knife made from a sandworm tooth, and honestly expects the pretty off-world boy to die. Meanwhile, Paul's visions are showing him contradictory futures. In some of them, Jameis is his friend and teacher. But in this reality, there's no way out. The duel begins. Jameis is fast, experienced, deadly. Paul is better. He gets several chances to end it early and hesitates every time, because yielding doesn't exist in Fremen rules. It's death or death. And finally, Paul drives the blade home, his first kill. Watch his face in this scene, no triumph, just the weight of it. The boy from Caladan is gone for good, and that's how the movie ends. Paul makes his choice, he's not running from this planet, and he's not trying to get back to safety. He tells his mother, my path leads into the desert. The Fremen accept them both into the tribe. As they march toward the Fremen stronghold, Paul sees a lone figure in the distance riding on the back of a sandworm, the impossible mythical skill of the desert people. And Chani turns to him with the final line of the film, this is only the beginning. So let's lock in what matters going forward. Paul has lost everything, his father, his home, his army, but he's alive inside the Fremen, exactly where the fake prophecy says the Messiah will rise. Jessica knows her son might be the Kwisatz Haderach. The Baron thinks Paul is dead. The Emperor's crime is still a secret that could ignite the universe. Gurney Halleck is missing, remember him, because he's not done. And above it all hangs Paul's darkest vision, a holy war in his name that could kill billions. Whether he can escape that future or whether he becomes it, that's the story of Part 2 and the reckoning of Part 3. If this recap saved your rewatch, subscribe the full Dune. Part 2 recap is next, and you'll want it before December.